So you think you might be interested in investing in REITs? Well, good, because by the end of this short video, you're going to know everything you need to know about REIT investing and whether it's going to be a good investment or a bad investment. And if you stick around to the end of this short video, I'll also be revealing my 3 best types of REIT to invest in. So firstly, what exactly is a REIT? Well, REIT stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And basically, this is when a company holds a number of real estate investments which provide a financial income, usually through the form of rent. So Company A, for example, may own 200 apartment blocks and they rent these out to tenants. Now, if Company A is a publicly traded company, then you can invest in that company as you would with any type of stocks and shares. And you then receive a dividend from all the income that they produce. So in essence, when you're investing in a REIT, you're actually owning a share of property which you're entitled to part of the rent, which you get paid in the form of a dividend. So what is the purpose of a REIT? So the great thing about a REIT is that it gives everyday investors like you and I the opportunity to have exposure to commercial property that usually you would never get the chance to have. And on top of this, you can also invest as little money as you like. So for example, with a REIT, you could own part of a distribution warehouse or a shopping centre in London or massive office blocks, just property that you normally would never get the chance to own. You can actually get exposure to any type of real estate, including huge commercial property with very little funds. Now, imagine driving past an Amazon warehouse knowing that you actually owned a part of it. So understanding the legalities of REITs. So luckily for us investors, there are some strict criteria which companies must meet to be allowed to be classed as a real estate investment trust and allow investors to buy shares. I'm going to tell you the 4 main ones now. So the first one, a REIT must invest 3/4 of their assets in real estate, and they must derive 3/4 of their income from property, such as rent or mortgage repayments. So that means you can rest assured that your REIT is not going to start selling t-shirts or hot dogs. No! Secondly, they must be structured as a corporation that has at least 100 shareholders. So because of this, most of the companies start out as partnerships and then go into becoming REITs. Again, this is a little more assurance for us investors. The next one is that no more than 50% of a REIT can be held by 5 or less investors. So this means that a small number of investors can't have the majority. So when it comes to making decisions, a small number of people are not going to be able to make some irrational decision, because we wouldn't want that, would we? And to save the best to last, REITs must pay out at least 90% of their income. And most of them, in fact, pay out 100% of their taxable income. And this is why you'll find that most REITs actually pay a higher dividend than normal companies would. So how much can I make from a REIT? If you're learning anything from this video, by the way, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Typically, a REIT will pay anywhere between 4% and 8% dividend per year. So for each £1,000 that you invest, you can expect typically around £50 paid out to you in dividends. Now, this is pretty good compared to the pathetic rate you would get paid by your bank at present. So why do these companies want to operate as a REIT? So with all these legislations and criteria to meet, surely there's something in it for them, right? Right, I won't mess around on this one. It's because of tax purposes. You see, REITs are not treated like normal corporations, therefore they don't have to pay corporation tax. So swiftly moving on, how do we invest in REITs? Most online trading accounts allow us to invest in REITs, and more importantly, most of them allow you to invest in REITs within an ISA, which means it's free from any tax. Investing in REITs is just as easy as investing in any stocks and shares company or ETFs. So what are the biggest advantages of investing in a REIT? So firstly, you can get exposure to real estate without actually owning real estate. You can avoid all the hassle that usually comes with buying a property, and not to mention all the expense that comes with buying a property. REITs are also popular for people that don't actually have enough funds to invest in property themselves, so they can actually enter the sector with minimal funds and still get exposure to real estate. They also offer good returns plus capital appreciation. And as we've already mentioned, REITs often return between 4 and 8% per year, which on investment terms is quite good. There's also the fact that your investment can rise in value too, because if real estate should rise in value, then that means your REIT will also rise in value. Another reason is you can also add diversification to your portfolio by having exposure to real estate. And if you don't currently own any real estate, then this is a great way to get involved. So are there any disadvantages to consider? Yes, and there are some that I want to mention. Firstly, the value of your investment can go down. If there was a property crash or real estate prices dropped, then your investment would also drop too. Another thing I want to mention is interest rates. Now usually a rise in interest rates is usually a bad sign for REITs. Now as things stand, we're currently seeing the lowest interest rates we've ever seen before, so be sure to keep this in mind when investing in REITs. Another downside to REITs is that you're actually relying on the rentals to be fulfilled. Now, certain sectors could take a big hit, and as we've just seen from the recent pandemic, high street retail took a massive hit, which in turn had a big impact on REITs that specialised on retail. So when investing in REITs, try to have a long-term outlook on things and try to predict things that might happen in the future rather than things that have probably done well in the past. So what type of REITs can I invest in? And by the way, if you want me to do a video on the best REITs to invest in, then please leave a comment below to let me know. So first off, there are residential REITs. Now residential REITs generally specialise in apartment properties, but there are some that invest in single family rental properties, and some choose to specialise even further. For example, there are residential REITs that exclusively invest in urban apartment buildings and student housing, communities and such things like that. Next, there are office REITs, and this is quite self-explanatory. They invest in large office blocks. Now most of these you'll find in the main cities such as London, Manchester, Birmingham, and often they are high-rise buildings. Next is industrial REITs, and this is one of my favourites because some of the industrial REITs also refer to themselves as logistic REITs, and basically they own properties such as distribution centres and factories and warehouses. So for example, Amazon require distribution warehouses, and as we know, online retail is becoming far more popular, so perhaps it would be a good idea to own REITs that specialise in industrial warehouses and distribution centres. Next is healthcare REITs, and again this is another favourite of mine. Healthcare real estate can be broken down into categories such as hospitals, medical offices, senior housing, nursing homes, care homes, wellness centres, and to be honest, this has got to be one of the best sectors to invest in because there's no doubting that the population is becoming older, we're requiring more care. Basically, there's always going to be a general need for healthcare in this country. Next up is self-storage REITs, and again, pretty self-explanatory. This is self-storage units, and we've seen these popping up all over the place just lately. And these are basically units which they rent out to people to store their belongings, and I don't think there's much more to say about storage units, so let's move on to the next one. Next up is retail REITs. Now retail REITs are mainly made up of shopping malls and shopping centres, but if you've read the news lately, well even for the past few years now, you'll know that high street retail is on a massive downturn, and investing in retail REITs is probably not a good idea at the minute, especially with the pandemic, which has had an even bigger impact on them. So yeah, stay away from retail REITs. So I hope that's helped you to learn a bit more about the different types of REITs that you can invest in and which type of real estate you can get exposure to. Now, as promised at the start, I'm going to give you my 3 best types of REITs to invest in. So firstly, it's the healthcare REIT, and I particularly like retirement care home REITs because, as I've just mentioned, our population is becoming older and older, and with the advancements of medicine and our understanding of lifestyle and healthcare and diets, people are going to be living longer and longer, and it only makes sense that the demand for care homes is going to be on the increase. Now, you know there's always going to be elderly people requiring care, so to me it makes sense to invest in healthcare REITs. Simple as that. Secondly is industrial REITs, and that again, as I've just mentioned, online shopping is becoming more popular year after year, and especially with this pandemic, we've seen a massive surge in online shopping. And for companies such as Amazon to be able to keep up with demand, they have to have these huge distribution centres all around the country. Now, I personally believe that within the next few years or next decade, the high street will be completely killed off. You won't have a local high street with shops. Everything will be brought online. I do think that the major shopping malls will survive, but the general high street stores will have absolutely no chance. So for this reason, industrial REITs look like a safe bet, and there will always be demand for them. And lastly, it's residential REITs. Again, housing, especially rentals, are always in demand. And combine this with the ever-growing population and the fact that everybody needs somewhere to live, housing REITs and residential REITs are a solid option for us. Also, if you can't actually afford to start your own property portfolio, investing in a residential REIT, you're giving yourself exposure to the same market as if you would buy a buy-to-let rental yourself. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're now fully clued up on real estate investment trusts. If you are, then the only thing I ask is if you could possibly hit that thumbs up button, as it helps with the YouTube algorithm, I believe. So it would be much appreciated if you did do that, as it will really help with my channel. And I'll also be creating more videos on REITs very soon.